Remembering. It's the moment you stop outsourcing your power and start returning to the truth that lived in your bones long before anyone told you who to be. It's the moment your inner voice becomes louder than the conditioning, the expectations, and the stories you inherited and told yourself. You don't need to become more. You need to remember who you already are. This podcast exists to help you magnetize your depth and dismantle the illusions beneath the roles, the masks, and the survival strategies to find real and sustainable strength. I'm Dahlia, and each conversation is an invitation back to your own inner authority, a reminder that your power was never missing, it was waiting. This is the remembering. Let's begin. Welcome back to the remembering. We are back with a very special guest, a friend of mine I met just last year, but I feel like at a soul level, gosh, I it could have been lifetimes ago in terms of alignment, in terms of similar ways of thinking and being. I absolutely love this very special human being with me here today. Her name is Maytte Dusseau. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, you did.
I don't say it
Absolutely.
often. So thank you. I was like, oh, I hope I get this right. I have an affinity for any sort of word or last name that ends in EAU. I just think it's so refined. It feels rich. Love your name. Love everything that you've been putting out socially and how raw and real it is. So, in terms of this podcast, raw and real is what we want. We embrace all walks of life and ways of being. And you have this deep authenticity that is like waking up on a Sunday morning, getting the smoothest coffee or tea, and sitting down to journal is how I describe watching you give and unfold. So, after all of that and all of my gushing about how in love I
Aw,
am with you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
sure. Dahlia, first, thank you. That was so sweet, and I appreciated it. And from the moment you and I met, it felt the same. I just really enjoyed our conversation. It was so easy. And I was just like so excited to come and have another conversation with you. So, as you said, my name is Maytte Dusseau. I am a transformational mindset and law of attraction coach, and I am super, super passionate about helping people to step into their power, to like really get that they're creating their reality. And for most people, it's by default, and more people are being intentional about how they're doing that. And so, for me, it's super exciting to be able to do this work. I love working with women. My ideal person is somebody who also is wanting to have an impact in the world because I just feel like right now more than ever, people are waking up and
Mhm.
they're wanting something different. And I feel like it's perfect alignment for what I do because I get to help people to really step into all that they can be. I've been doing this from a spiritual standpoint and in terms of just like who I am and lived experience, it feels like almost all my life. Practically speaking, it's probably been 10, 15 years that I've just been like super zeroed in on
Mhm.
my own expansion and growth. And as a part of that, it just has unfolded to this passion that I have from a coaching standpoint. And then I'm sitting right now in the event space of my bookstore. I own a spiritual bookstore in Dunedin, Florida. And that is a dream that I had when I was in my 20s. I walked into this
Mm.
metaphysical bookstore in South Philly and I felt like I had returned home. I remembered something about who I was. And here we were in this place of just all this knowledge. And I was like, I want to be able to provide that. After a plant medicine journey, I went and did ayahuasca. That just changed everything. Like literally, I came back November of 23, and by March of 24, the bookstore was up and running. And so it's just been an incredible gift and a beautiful extension to what I was already really excited and focused on.
We love the grandmother here very much. I know some people out there are like, it's not for everybody, but I haven't met a person who hasn't revolutionized their entire life and experience. You said something very interesting that I wondered if you could flesh out for us as we're moving through this remembering process. You said most people are out here choosing by default. What does that look like and feel like from what you've observed and maybe experienced?
Sure. By default to me means that you wake up every morning, you eat the same thing for breakfast, you take the shower at the same day, you wear the same kinds of things, you travel to work using the same route, you go to this job that you may or may not like, and you do that, you come home, same route, same type of dinner, watch some TV, go to sleep, do the same thing the next day, and really not be intentional in terms of like, what's going on? Like,
Right.
am I living the life that I really want to be living, or did all of this just happen and here I am and I'm just doing this day after day? It's kind of like the hamster on the wheel.
Right.
That what that means is if you think the same way and feel the same way and act the same way and do the same thing, you are going to have the same experience. Versus taking a look at your life in all the different areas and really assessing whether it's the way that you'd like it to be. The idea that you can make it different, that you have the power, not that all of this is happening out here and I'm just, a victim to it, but that I can really take responsibility and create something different. And we primarily do that by looking at the beliefs that we hold.
Right.
So if I believe that money's hard to make, then I have thoughts about that. And that creates angst and worry and doubt and fear. And then the actions that I take or don't take make it so that I get to experience all these situations where money's hard to make.
Right.
For most people, they think that money's hard to make is what has made them believe that money's hard to make. What I do is I help you to understand that it's that belief that started it. So
Right.
if you change that belief, then now you have different thoughts about that. You have different feelings about that. You're more hopeful, you're more open, you're more alert to what is happening in your environment. You take different actions, and now, you're getting a check in the mail that you didn't expect.
Right.
Or you're reaching into your pocket and there's a $50 bill that you forgot that you had put in there. Like,
Oh, I
and
love
those are-
laundry money.
Huh?
I love laundry money.
And so things start to change.
Right.
And when you really get that you're the one who's making that change, yes, we are constantly co-creating with the creator, and they, universe, whatever, there's these things that they're making happen. There's this term about the cooperative components. They're gathering the cooperative components to make things different for you, to create opportunity, to put people in your path, to have the coincidences that start making things different.
And that's essentially when we talk about remembering, it's not only remembering the components that you're mentioning, but remembering that this is what we did as kids. I mean, that's where my mind went when you were talking about where the belief started, because kids don't think that way. Kids don't, wake up and go, money's hard to make.
Right.
They observe it, or, the adults in their lives reinforce it, and then that seed grows. Before that, no matter how early, there's just this sort of openness to paying attention and to responding to life that adults both take for granted and then sometimes don't know that they can actually stop, pause, and pay attention to. I appreciate you outlining what that looks like, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of say, one, if I didn't know, now I know. And number two, you outlined perfectly, like, if you're listening to this, go back and say, okay, check, check. All right, I may be creating by default.
Mm.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So a person that you observe as creating by default, you come into their lives and you adjust their lens to look at their beliefs instead of looking at their challenges. From there, they start to live the life they want. What could a person hope for? I guess I'm looking at like beginning, middle of the journey. We're at the middle of the journey now. What can a person hope for now that they're working with you and looking at their belief systems?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know none of these, they're just coming. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. The reason I hesitate is because that's where the work is. The work is, it's easy. I mean, it's simple, but not easy. Because it's just like learning how to drive a car is the example that I usually give. You're
Okay.
sitting at, most of us learned how to drive in high school. So you're sitting in the classroom and you've got this manual and there's 50 million things that you're like learning, but you're not hands on. So you've got sort of a concept. And then you get into the car and then there's all these parts and pieces that you have to pay attention to. Because in order to drive the car, you have to know how to do all these things. And you get on the road. And so, okay, we sort of know how to do things, but it's not automatic. You have to practice. You have to
Right.
keep getting in the car. You keep driving. And, when my kid was going through that, I literally said, you are now my driver. Wherever I have to go, you get to drive.
Yeah.
In whatever those situations were, because I knew he needed the practice. And like with most of us, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can get somewhere now and I have no idea how I even got there.
Oh yeah, most days.
Right? So my point in this analogy is that for people in the middle, it's a remembering of what are those steps, paying attention to when these things come up.
Mhm.
What tends to trigger you? When is it that you're having this? And is this a recurring thought? What's not working? And one of the tools that I use is the 2 states of being, which is understanding. And I've got all sorts of ways of explaining that. We're talking, are you in a primal state or a powerful state? Abraham Hicks talks about it from, are you feeling good or are you not feeling good? And so at any moment in time, when we're paying attention to who we are,
Mhm.
we can assess, am I feeling good? Am I feeling powerful or am I not? And if I'm not, what's that about? Am I in
Right.
fear? Am I in worry? Am I in doubt? Well, what am I thinking? And the better you get at identifying and recognizing when you're not in a powerful state, you get to address that.
Right.
That's what the middle looks like. It's really understanding that the only way, I shouldn't say the only way, but the only way for transformation to occur is for you to challenge that and to do the work. And there's a lot of levels to that. There's the superficial, just like, okay, I'm not feeling good. My thought is I'm worried about, am I going to have enough money till the end of the week? Like whatever that is. okay, how could that look different? How could I look at that situation differently? All
Mm,
the way to doing, some ancestral trauma work, because a lot of times it's not even us. We're carrying it, but it's not even ours. So there's a
mhm,
whole level of work that could be done in the middle. At the end, it's really about who have you become? And I'll say it in terms of your podcast, truly remembering who you are, because you're a spiritual being having this human experience and you are whole. You have everything you need to have the life that you want. The programming is what has kept you from that.
absolutely.
So the work that I do is about helping you to remember that you are that powerful and that life can be however you want it to be. Like literally, it really can.
Mm. I appreciate you distinguishing the middle as the place where the work begins, because I find so much when people come to me, or just sort of out in the ether, I hear people talking about doing the work and they're still in the beginning stages of starting to remember themselves. And so it's like, the work hasn't even begun, and they almost become displaced because they feel like that discovery process becomes something's wrong with them. They're not doing it right. And then they stop or get off track just before the actual work begins because of some sort of perception. And this is my inference,
Yeah.
but it seems like there's a perception that once you discover who you are, the rest is easy. And it's like, oh no.
And interestingly enough, one of the things that I've been coming up with is that when you're in the work and you've done the
Mhm.
work and you feel good about having done the work, you consider yourself healed, consider yourself more aware, more intentional, all those things. And then you get to another level,
Yes.
meaning, you know, you're making $250,000 and now a year, let's say in your business, but now your focus is you want to make $1 million. Well,
Sure.
whatever that thing is that is now stretching you uncovers the next layer.
Absolutely.
And so the work is kind of never done. I think it gets easier because you recognize it. My point being, though, that for a lot of people, that's the work around that is understanding that does not negate all the work that you've done already. It's not like you're starting at
Yes.
ground zero. You've done all that. That's part of who you are now. But that doesn't mean you're not going to be challenged the next time that you confront something new, because we're programmed to be wary of what we don't know, because back in the day, if we didn't know what was going to happen, we were on high alert.
Right,
And so
right.
that's not the case now, but our body will still get into high alert. So there's a piece around that of understanding, and then also, the nervous system regulation, which is such a big part of this work, like the deep breathing, the recognizing, the attention to that piece of it, which is really important as well.
Yeah. An important muscle to build. I hear you talking about the nervous system, like expanding capacity where you couldn't
Mm.
handle something before. With repeat practice, you're able to hold it at the very least. It's not metaphorically burning your hands.
Right.
So,
Right.
and you touched on going to different levels and referenced, $250,000 to $1 million. And it feels important to remind listeners that prosperity and abundance are the hallmark of a healthy life. And
Mm.
so, even talking, if you're not that person that is working towards money goals, take Maite's words as an opportunity to ask why, and to release any resistance around spirituality and money, because they are unified. And I feel like the more we quarter these things to say this is spiritual and this is not, we start forgetting even more. So
Yes.
I'm so glad that you touched on that piece.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I will never forget the first time I read the book, The Science of Getting Rich by, I want to say it's Wallace Waddle. I think that's who it is. And he talks about the fact that part of coming into this existence is to be rich. Because when you're rich, I mean, as we know, money is just a currency, it's energy. And
Sure.
I know that is maybe a little of a different way of looking at money for some people, but it provides us an opportunity to do more, to experience more. And that's what we came here to do in this beautiful planet of ours, is to really understand our preferences and to live fully. And your divine right is to have abundance and prosperity so that you can. And so, as always, what's so interesting is that the only reason that isn't happening, the only reason that anything in your life is not happening the way that you might want it to, is again the belief work. Because the belief work is about the programming that you, like you said beautifully, that you got as a little kid that is now still operating in the back, in your subconscious. And you, meaning the sovereign being that you are, have not taken the time to really look at, is that how I want things to be? I mean, we could talk about this. I mentioned I've been sort of focused on the money, but it could be your health. It could be your career. It could be your relationship. It could be your own personal development. Like, there's so many different areas of our lives that we can take a look at, which is why I love this work, because it works in all areas. Like, you just got to pick one.
Right.
And start figuring out, like, how do I really feel about that? Like, what do I believe about the kind of career that I can have? What do I really believe about what it means to be healthy? Like, in all the different areas, as you said, you got information from those around you, and that's working. So if it's not working, guess what? Oh, you get to change it. Like, you literally get to decide for it to be different. For me, that's just like the most empowering thing. Like, it doesn't have to be that way.
It's the realization is, it's powerful. I believe, especially for women, people who identify as women, people with uteruses, like wherever you are on that spectrum, the culture, predominant culture, I would say globally, is not believing that you have the power to change anything. You're sort of living in a reactive nature, and it's not that other types of human beings don't have that struggle. It's I'm referencing the insidiousness of what's built in globally. It is definitely in one direction away from equally
Personal power.
distributed power.
Yeah.
And so the simplicity of it, how do you navigate? Do you just say it's that simple, or or do you do a dance with people where you start to unravel that because it's simple, it's safe?
I think I go back to, I mean, for me, it is that simple. Like, I start with it being that simple so that people can really grasp I'm in charge. Like, I get to decide. I'm a sovereign being. The safety is interesting because I, again, believe that this is your life, and what you believe is so powerful. So in that power, I think that there's room for the work around safety, because as you just mentioned, we're in a society where, you know, if you don't look a certain way, there's a level of unsafety that I
Sure.
think permeates. So when you do this work, it's super empowering, but you do have to look at that, because I also think, just based on the reality of where, not where we live, but the reality of the world, there's so much trauma that occurs, and safety just, it's just an issue that I think many of us have to work on. Me personally, you know, I had childhood trauma, and like, I've worked on it. I've been to therapy. You know, that program of what that meant, the perception that I had about something is wrong with me or having to take everything on, has been such an interesting, challenging, beautiful process. But I'm going to tell you that it has been recently that I've done enough work for my body to feel safe, which I'm going to tell you, and this may lead us back to our original conversation, which is why, you know, in the midst of what we're dealing with, I'm pretty angry about it, because here I am working on feeling safe in my body, and I'm dealing with a situation which, there's potential for me not to be safe.
Yes.
Because of how I look. And so that's this whole, like, what? But then back to your point about, or for our conversation, I have to go to this place of saying, no, this is my world. I am safe. I can make choices to keep myself safe. Now, and the reason why I say it that way is because you always have a choice. I could be in fear now. I could live my life with worry and fear and distrust, and all of those emotions would be justified by others.
Right.
But the work that you do puts you in a position to say, no, I'm not choosing that. I'm going to continue to choose to be safe. I am safe. And in that belief, I feel like that keeps me safe, because I am that powerful. My words have power.
I hear you explaining to us that you can choose the flow of emotions and energy and power that happens in your life, with deciding not to be entangled, swallowed up by how you or how the collective believes you should feel, and being more conscious and more aware of the power of your choice, the power of your decisions. And that seems like it naturally leads to the safety. Yes, our original conversation. So, say
Yeah,
again?
I want to add one point to that, Dahlia, because I
Sure.
think that there's probably people out there that's like, yeah, but what if something happens? But
Thank you.
good. And so I choose to believe that even in that situation, my spiritual beliefs, my faith, who I am as a person, will continue to make choices around how I want to choose to perceive that situation. Because one of my beliefs is that everything happens for my highest good.
Sure.
Everything. So even in a situation that would not be preferable,
And there are so many.
oh my goodness, so many. I'm going to choose to be curious. I'm going to choose to not be reactive. I'm going to choose to pause and opened up an opportunity for me to look at, why is this happening? What's the lesson? What's the gift? What do I need to learn? And to then try, as much as I can to get back into a powerful state. So we can continue that, because there's this whole process that we need to go through to stay grounded in that, in the midst of what we're dealing with.
So the conversation we were having, and I love those, you've also outlined steps. Again, if you're watching this, you need to pause and rewind. I really feel like you gave us some solid nervous system steps, even if you're new to this sort of healing work, or you're new to deeper levels of awareness. What you said about being curious, non-reactive, asking questions, and then deciding how to move forward, like, maybe we don't need to have the rest of the show. But thank you for staying. So you, as we are, I would consider us like seasoned, right? Because I know that you and I know that I don't go around going, I'm healed and I don't have any more work to do. We aren't those people.
Absolutely not. Work in progress.
Right. And with that being the case, blind spots happen even as practitioners. And so can you walk us through a most recent, can we say blind spot?
Well, absolutely. So I just got back from Tahoe, a legendary trip with David Bear, who is the person that I follow, that I got just certified in his coaching certification. And there was the murder of Renee Good, and I was really affected by that. But I'm in the midst of this very powerful and uplifting, and just a community that really is extremely supportive. And so I felt okay about how all that transpired, even though obviously I wasn't as okay. I got back from that trip, and I was so mesmerized by what was happening and how it was being dealt with, that I just could not stop being on social media. And I would get home. My girlfriend had come to visit, and I would get home and we would go out to dinner and we would have drinks. And I just was going through the motions. And then Saturday happened with what I consider the murder of Alex Preddy. And I was beside myself. I couldn't figure, I couldn't figure out how to process that. But on Sunday, and in the midst of that, I'm doing a class that's all about the 7 planes of existence and being connected to the creator. And I'm like understanding all of that, and then just like not figuring out what's going over here. And then on Sunday, I realized that I wasn't really dealing with any of it. I was numbing. I was not being aware. And in that realization, I was the realization gave me permission to be okay. Like, you did that. That's how you handled it. But this is not how we handle things. That's not how I want to handle things. So I literally spent the rest of the day, that day and Monday. Monday, I could not do anything. The live that you saw in the morning on Monday was about that. I wasn't even going to talk about that, but that's what came out.
Sure.
I spent the day meditating. I spent the day, there were a couple things that I was following up on, all uplifting, but my energy was really heavy. But I spent the day acknowledging that I was extremely angry, that I was heartbroken at the actions that had been taken, that I was feeling extremely hopeless and helpless. And really feeling scared, like for the first time, feeling scared. I'm a person of color. Up until this most recent election, not that I didn't consider myself a person of color, but I grew up in Miami. I'm a Cuban American. In Miami, we're the majority. I went away to school and I went up north, and all of my friends were white and Jewish. I could be Italian. I could be Jewish. Like I just never had that experience. And I was dating somebody who was now concerned for my safety because he recognized the threat.
Mm.
And again, I don't choose to be in that. So I acknowledge that. And then you move on because that's not where I'm going to be. But this weekend with that happening just took it to another level. And then I think the other piece of it that I'm going to acknowledge right now, because it just came up into my awareness, is probably for the first, well, I won't say the first time because it's happened before, but just the acknowledgement of how this has been happening and that people live in fear all the time that are not white. And again, that's not something that I think about all the time, but this weekend, like I just felt it in a way that I had not felt it. And it was hard. But back to what we were talking about, I acknowledged it.
Mm-hmm.
I sat with it. I allowed it. And then I went about my business. I came to a tuning into your intuition class, and the connection to spirit just shifted something. And that night, I had a download. You're not hopeless. You're not helpless. The work that you do is what you're here to do. We are in the midst of an awakening. More and more people are understanding that this is not the way that we want to live our life. But how do you create change? You create change one person at a time. So this whole conversation that we're having is my way of helping people to identify what is the life that you want to live. How do you want to make an impact? For me, I've decided that the women that I want to work with are the women who want to make a big impact. Because the more people that are out there helping, like I just spoke to a woman because I'm becoming an advocate in this organization that a friend of mine is the founder of a nonprofit called Maddie's Movement.
Mm-hmm.
And their whole focus is helping kids that are coming out of the foster care system to get the supports that they need so that they can be successful. And I just thought to myself, like, wow, like what a movement. Because these young people, like, it's not even that they have the programming. They also now have this, all the things that come with this broken systems that we have, and the ability to help them own that they can be different, that their past does not define who they are. I mean, these are just the lessons that all of us, can learn from. What we've been through defines us from the standpoint of what do we do in terms of allowing that to be the gift, to be what strengthens us, what makes us more resilient, what helps us to then go out there and change the world, like whatever that is really powerful, because each one of us carries energy, and that energy is part of the collective. And so each one of us that raises our vibration, our frequency, our light is adding to that collective that is also in the process of that. And that's how we change the world. That's how we get to be part of creating heaven on earth, or the new earth, however, whichever one feels better to you, I guess.
Right. That transition process through levels of awareness, when you spoke about how people typically live in default, I feel like that setting of not paying attention is more regular. And then you just gave us a necessary awareness that not connecting with presence, not staying present, not asking more questions, getting curious, it can slip back in the background. I mean, and I think it's worth pointing out, you were traveling, you were, entertaining and visiting with friends. And what I'm taking away is the necessity of pausing even in those moments, to not assume that you're fine because it's not close to home or not directly related to you, didn't know who was involved. uh, it's it's equally important, because of that collective connection that you're talking about, to slow down when incidents happen. And then you had this beautiful moment at your bookstore with the intuition class, that it seemed like it took your narrow scope and broadened it and widened it in such a way that you could receive a message that, thank you for sharing it here, everybody needs to hear. Because it is in those moments when we get into a very natural place of fear, but we let it take over, that we forget that there's more of us than there is of them. Like, we aren't helpless. We
No.
can make decisions, make changes. And that is how everything changes. And I love the last component is you're putting boots to the ground. Like, you're supporting filling a gap in our social system that is creating more violence in the world, because there's a disconnection when a child goes from foster care and is just like, okay, well, we raised you to adulthood, figure it out. And I think about what would be different if each of us cared and took action based on that care just 10% more.
Mm.
And we all did it together. There would be no heavy lift on anyone, because it'd be a shared process. And I believe we did that societally at one time, and we've forgotten. And I hear in your story the humanness, the 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 want to see a better world and a pathway to that, remembering that we had a better world before, and we can have it again and then some. Not just, there's nothing, I'm not one of those people, so let's go back to, there's none of that.
No.
There is only forward and more space, and more space for everyone as they are. I look forward to the world where the people you've coached shape it, because it is going to be 20 times better than what we have.
Yeah. It's again, it's a choice in how you want to look at what's happening. When I'm at my best, which I am right this second, I'm so excited, because those of us who are doing this work chose to come at this moment in time, because it's so important. That shift to remembering who we really are, that we have the power. If it's been fascinating to me to kind of go back and be exposed to scriptures and looking at the Bible in terms of what it says from a different lens altogether, where you can look and see, like, Jesus was an example of somebody who was extremely enlightened, and the things that he could accomplish because of who he was and who he believed himself to be.
Mhm.
And granted, that is an extreme example, but the idea that we can also create, the more clear we are, the more we've done the work to clear the programming, the more we understand like how things work. You know, I love this work because I'm not geeky, but I do appreciate that the science has finally caught up with a lot of the things that I believe and know to be true. And now you have science that is backing it up. But like, think about the fact that we live in a quantum field. What does that mean? That means that in this moment, everything is happening in this moment. My
And
past, my future, every version of me in terms of
and
who I want. Yes.
everything is possible in that same space, because that's what quantum is.
Yes. And we get to choose in this moment. So, like, in every moment, we have a choice. The more that we do this work, the more that we're intentional. That's what we're doing. We're being present in the moment and thinking about in this moment, how do I want to show up?
Mm. I feel like Christ and Buddha and all of the human beings that we could idealize, look up to, when you really look at their journey, it was that sense of self, that belief in self. Like, you just illuminated something for me. They were never so outwardly focused on others. They were just working on themselves and deeply believing in themselves in different ways. And speaking of Christ, one of the things that I always like to point out to people, especially my students, when we're doing energy work or anything like that, I point out that when just before Jesus would do anything for another person, he would ask them if they believe. Like, you know, do you believe that you can be healed from this? And then he would do the thing. One of the examples is the lepers that he healed, right? One got to keep his healing and the others became sick again because they saw a quick fix and the other deeply believed that he could be healed. And that just goes to show you, like you said, the power of belief, the power of choice. But I'm recognizing in this moment, and I'm so grateful for you, just why we have been pulled into such an external place. Look at what's happening outside of you. Look at what's going on around you. It's this, it's that. It's high, it's low, it's right, it's wrong. And if we are really to reach peak humanity status, it will always go back to looking at yourself and not, I don't recall anything about those individuals that we can emulate, and you can correct me if you heard anything, but I don't remember hearing anything about them sort of self-chastising or like trying to correct or like, oh no, I get angry sometimes, so let me never, I must be a bad person. Do you have any references for that?
I think that I look at it as the level of self-acceptance
Yeah,
was just incredibly high.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
I hear your work being both a beautiful path to that, and then like the work you were talking about that you do in the middle with folks, because it really sounds like once the work begins, everyone will need a level of support, right? Because I hear you empowering us to do our own work. You've given us tons to remember. And I see this need that if you are new to the work, if you feel like you have something to contribute, and everybody listening, if you're listening to this, you have something to contribute. Let me just answer the question now.
Absolutely.
You, you may need someone Maite specifically to stand beside you as you walk through the different layers of life. And now we know you can also walk through all the 7 different dimensions with Maite by your side. Would you share with us just the heart of your work and maybe some things that we can look forward to coming down the
Oh my
road?
God, there's so much. I'm so excited about this. So, this year I'm doing monthly workshops. If you do all of them, it'll sort of take you through what we've been talking about. You can do them standalone. This first one is going to be local, but one of the things that I'm working on is to do a hybrid workshop so that we can have people from wherever tune in and have a local audience. I'm starting a YouTube show, which is
Yeah.
going to be highlighting some of these women, individuals who are making a big impact. Because for me, a couple of things, I want to inspire people because at the end of the day, the people who are making the choice to do these things, have a story and they're no different than any of us. They just found something that really spoke to them, and made the decision to go for it. And so for me, if you're feeling called, then you need to go for it. And I mean, I'm talking about people who are making a big impact, but literally that impact could be within your own life, like being the best mother, being the best wife, being the best person that is living life fully on your terms. Like it could be that, like the work that I do and I'm promoting, so to speak, um, can be for anybody to just live a more intentional life. And I didn't even tell you this, but part of what I'm also going to do is do something like a Dear Abby show. So
Okay.
we're going to do the inspiring, let me tell you their story, help you listen to their story and why they want to make this big impact. And then it's going to be like, hey, I'm having problems with my boyfriend. And how do I look at that situation? What do I do? Like something like that. I've always been fascinated when I was little. Like I could not wait to get the newspaper so I could read Dear Abby. Like to me, that was just like the coolest job ever. And I thought, you know what better way for me to take situations that people are struggling with and put my spin on it. Because I think that I bring a really good mix of how do you look at it from a different perspective? How do you
Okay.
look at it from a spiritual perspective? And how do you look at it from a mindset perspective? Like
Hmm.
all of that is who I am. And I feel like that would be really useful for people to kind of get to see what we've been talking about as it relates to a particular situation.
It really brings them home. I'm envisioning and feeling this sense of community coming forward from even the anonymity of it, if there is any, or just like you hear somebody's story and it's similar to yours. I think about all the times when I was out like healing and doing the work myself, how much difference that made for me personally, just to hear it. And then it often propelled me to seek support because I knew I was no longer like an outlier and in a weird world.
Right. No, for
That's
sure.
wonderful.
Yeah.
For everybody, listen.
And what I was just going to say, and the last thing I'll say is that it'll be in February. So hopefully by the time the show airs, we'll have it all laid out. But I'm going to be doing a webinar that just goes a little deeper in my story around how I got to this place and what this work has done for me.
Mm,
But in the context of helping people to understand again how important this work is, that you can make your life different, that you get to choose. And to your point, and I love how you have driven this home, it's not about what's out there. It's not the next thing. It's really coming home to yourself.
Mhm.
And it's about remembering who you are at your core, why you came here, and what this was supposed to be like for you. Because it's supposed to be bliss. It's supposed to be joy. It's supposed to be, this rich experience of life. And it can be that way.
Through choice.
Mhm.
Just, I know everybody's probably like eager with anticipation of, well, how do I connect with you? All of that will be in the description below the video. I wanted to say, I think I've heard for the second or third time, your inner child had an experience and you're like, you know what? I'm going to make that as an adult. So if you'd share real quickly your dream, it was with your bookstore. You were saying how you walked into a bookstore when you were younger and then you brought that to life. So there's your younger self and then your inner child wanting to read Dear Abby, and there she is, like, but in Maite form. So I it's just, I love that. What, before we go, because I have one last question. Do you have those inner child conversations all the time? Is she just like a spirit guide? What happens? Because she seems to be doing great work in the world.
Oh my goodness, that's a very interesting question. I've done the work to let her know that it's safe, that we are safe, that life is good. And so I wouldn't say that I have conversations on a regular basis, but I will acknowledge that every time we move forward, it's a testament to what she went through and the lessons that adult me is so grateful for. And just generally speaking, when I look back, there were moments in time where I was pretty angry about things that had happened and the trauma that I had been through. And if it had been different, my life would be different and those kinds of things. And yet, when you do the work, like I know for me now, there's been forgiveness, there's been acceptance, there's been even gratitude, because who I am in this moment, sitting here with you, is a uh, direct result of the choices that I made coming into this life, which included the things that happened, so that I could be here to fulfill the purpose that I'm in the midst of fulfilling.
Beautiful. For real, last question.
Okay.
What are you currently remembering in this season of your life? I feel like you've given us a little bit of that, but is there, maybe you'll say it again, but what are you currently remembering in this season of your life?
And it's been worth it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's been worth it, because when I think about my life right now and what I'm getting to do and where I live and the relationships that I have, and while there are some things that I can't wait till they materialize, my life is so good. And honestly, Dahlia, like I am the person that I wanted to be when I was little and when I was younger. So it's a really cool remembrance.
Thank you for that. If
Thank you for that beautiful
anyone,
question. I was not expecting this.
well, I think, what a gift, because of everything that you've said. I think that if each of us could reach that point, everything would be worth it. Maite, thank you for being here. Thank you for remembering, and for the irredeemable gift here of your time. And I hope we can have you back. Everybody, I will put everything and everywhere that you can find Maite. And for now, we'll say goodbye and catch you next time on the Remembering.